What is your background?
Grew up in a small farming town in Nebraska, a town of about 10,000 people called Norfolk, and went to the University of Nebraska for undergraduate, but very much was town kid that grew up in the middle of cornfields and soybeans and cattle production and pig production facilities, and but then kind of got the bug to go to law school when I was at the University of Nebraska, and so I made the mistake of coming to CU for law school the 3 years that CU was any good at football. And so that was the McCartney era, and I lost bets 3 years in a row when they won their national championships and had to wear CU football gear and a helmet and hat and everything to law school class. But after I graduated from law school here in Colorado in 1991 and practiced employment law and commercial transaction work, so did a lot of M&A stuff, did general contract work, work on the negotiation and defense side of union type work for a few years, and got really interested in business and leadership development as a result of that. And I ended up going to work initially with a large healthcare system here in Colorado called Centura Health, and they were merging. This was the era when all the healthcare systems were merging together, and did a lot of work in helping physician practices, hospitals, et cetera, combine their business models and put themselves together. But I was still practicing law inside at the time. But after that, I ended up working, and this really set the stage for when I came to CQG. I worked as a strategy and transformation consultant with a consulting firm here in Boulder called Destra Consulting, and it was led by a woman named Pam Dennis, who came really out of that GE and Motorola era, where a lot of that original change management, transformation, process engineering, and excellence work, culture work was developed. And so she was a big mentor of mine, and we worked a lot on the initial .com era out in Palo Alto. And but in doing that, I was on the road, 100,000 miles a year. And on my way back, I thought I was coming back from a gig, actually in Ohio. And my first kid was born in the air over 3.5 weeks early. And I got a $700 Amex bill from the Airphone bill as I listened to my wife labor on the other end. And I thought to myself, this is not a good idea to be traveling all the time if I'm going to be a dad. And so I was taking some time off and came across Tim Mather, who was the owner of CQG at the time. And I had a few meetings with him, and he talked about the challenge and how the markets were starting to go electronic. And I said, well, this sounds like a great local project for me. I specialize in business transformations. And he said, no, he said, I really need somebody to come in and do this with me, because he had this great platform that had a wonderful reputation around the data access, the data quality, the analytics, but he didn't have really anything to speak of from an execution perspective. And this was, early 2000, and he could see this big shift coming very rapidly into the derivatives markets, that everything was going to go electronic very quickly. And so he asked me to come in and kind of help him transform his company as a partner.
What was the CQG story up until that point?
Tim sometimes is missed as one of the greater innovators within the derivatives world. He was a broker in Glenwood Springs in the 80s, and he had a client who was a rancher, but also, I believe, had an advanced degree from either MIT or some other school. When the TRS-80 computer came out and when graphics cards became available, he saw an opportunity to basically serve his customers better by creating a charting program and data analytics program to help traders have an edge and give them good information for decision making. And so, as a result of that, he looked at other systems that were out there, and the one that comes to mind is Quotron, which was like a bit of a ticker tape, I think, if I remember right. And he just saw a real opportunity and did the typical entrepreneur thing, borrowed money from friends and family, and spent a lot of time developing the initial program, and it really satisfied a good group of people. And I think he had a very early emphasis on data quality, but he kept his business in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, which is right off of I-70 on your way to Aspen, small mountain town. And he was able to build that initial business from there, opening offices in Chicago, New York, and then, like a lot of companies, started to spread out internationally just a little bit. But it was really, I would say, a decision-making tool, and he really started that company to give traders an edge at the time, and the edge that he was able to create was really, really solid quality data. You fast forward to the times that we're in now, and data integrity and quality have probably never been more important. And so I think that's a principle that has really held true over the years. But he expanded then into fairly complex studies, did partnerships with companies like Tom Demark, and had the Demark indicators on his machine, which really, in a way, were early, algorithms that eventually get automated. But he really spent a lot of time building out the market connectivity, and eventually offered API connectivity. He eventually launched a satellite so you could get satellite delivery of CQG, but it was mainly a hardware delivered product until about, I want to say, the mid 90s, when they developed the internet delivered version of it, that they were then able to deliver to people's desktops in that way.
What were your mandates when you joined CQG?
We really had a couple of mandates. One is that we wanted to essentially build the functionality and build the product development capability to be able to be more of what I'd call a product focused company. I guess I would just call it better capacity for developing product. It had a relatively small workforce from a software development perspective, and so we ended up increasing that to, gosh, I think at one time close to 300 developers. And then the other thing from a business perspective was we really needed to find a way into order execution. We developed an order ticket on the interface. We developed probably half a dozen different ways of entering an order, but it was in this era that there were a lot of other players coming into being. And so it was really a competitive need. You had everything from trading technologies to Ready to Fastbill to Patch Systems to Stellar, et cetera. And so it was really a competitive need to be able to stay relevant, I think, to the market at that time, to offer that capability. And then the other was historically the business maybe didn't have enough process and people discipline that it had in the past, and needed a little bit of a culture change. And so we did a lot of work engaging people around the company to enhance the strengths, like the data quality, like the focus on the customer and our ability to develop product, but then also bring in more of the business discipline really to the company, and a sense that you have to work across processes rather than in silos to be successful. And so that was a lot of the initial mandate.
Did you buy your trading technology?
What we bought, it was actually just a trading gateway. So think of it as the trading engine in the background, not a UI or anything like that. But what came with it were a handful of developers, and they turned out to be the real value in it. It was really we really got some strong people out of it. It created a kind of the back end of our trading engine so that we could build off of that to have that initial trading gateway to start to connect into the CME initially. And that really became, I think, our entree into the market.
What was the first version of the platform like?
The first version was a very basic order ticket that you needed to just fill out by hand. So it took multiple actions. It took a long time to fill out, but it was good for people that were more, I think, what you'd call positional traders and service kind of that historical market. But pretty rapidly, we developed other ways that you could enter orders. So over the course of probably between 2000 and let's call it 2005, we probably had 4 or 5 different ways you could enter an order. You could enter an order off of a quote board. You could enter an order off of a chart. You could enter an order off of a price ladder. You could enter an order off of that order ticket in a much more efficient way. But it took some time. And one of the things that we did during that time period is we really felt like user design was important. And so what we did at the time is we went out and we hired UX experts and designers from Frog Design, from IDEO, and a guy named Marcus Kwan that was from Microsoft, that was a big part of their design team. And they were really able to come in and give CQG a much fresher approach, much more modern approach to UI design that I think really laid the groundwork for a lot of that success.
How did you come up with the idea of right-clicking on a product to expand a wheel of options?
Those guys that we hired and Tim, actually, it was really popular with a small group of people, but it was definitely one of the more innovative ways of entering an order for people, because it really fit the people that were trying to enter an order off of a chart or off of a quote board. Because if they just wanted to open up something very close to the price they were looking at, it was a super easy way to do that.